So, welcome to Module 4. If you've made it this far, say congratulations. You have one third of the way into the program. So, in this Module 4, we will be discussing preventive and mitigating factors. We discussed what went wrong in Module 3. Those are the risk factors. So, now we're discussing or shifting the focus from what went wrong to what can be strengthened going forward such that the recovery can be sustained. The aim of this module is to equip participants with the knowledge and the tools that are needed to build both internal and external protective systems. So that will be emotional, that will be social, that will be spiritual, that will be lifestyle related, such that their vulnerability to addiction can be reduced and long-term recovery can be supported. So now at the end of this model, what are the expectations we have that you as an individual will be able to develop healthy ways of coping with stress and emotional pain? Those two, they will show up every now and then in everybody's life. But our ability to cope with it or the lack thereof determines how easily an individual will slip down that slippery slope of addiction. Then the aim is also to strengthen emotional intelligence and resilience such that you know what is going on within you. And when there's a shift in your emotions, you're intelligent enough to discern, decipher, and be able to do what it takes to put yourself back on that stable state emotionally, even if the situation has not changed. And then resilience, just to be sturdy within yourself, that life does not push you around emotionally, psychologically. Life can be happening, but you're thoroughly anchored within the healthy coping mechanisms you've developed, and you are like that tree that is deeply rooted, that the storms of life will not be able to uproot you or bend you or break you, as the case may be. Then in this module, we also hope to be able to, you as an individual, be able to build stable support system. You need that if you're going to be able to quit and overcome addiction. So support systems, hopefully and by God's grace, that you have support system in your family, because those will be the most consistent persons in your life, in your community. So that could be friends, that could be neighbors, that could be, as Africans, we have a lot of mummies, a lot of uncles, a lot of aunties. So that could also be those ones, and that could be mentors, formal, informal mentors. And it could also be support systems in your faith spaces. So that could be your pastor, your priest, your clergies, your HOD coordinator, persons you can just reach out to if you're struggling. Then we also hope to be able to deepen education, at least understand some of these things, these nuances of addiction recovery some more, then to be able to generate self-awareness, really knowing yourself, be able to incorporate some solid spiritual grounding and protocols, be able to maintain a lifestyle that would, of course, support your emotional regulation. Because if you're trying to quit addiction and then you hang out with people that would always make you flip off the handle, the negative emotional state is always being activated. It will be difficult for such an individual to sustain recovery and then also be able to maintain your health physically. At the end of this module, we would expect that you'll be able to create a personalized prevention plan that will become like a roadmap for your own personal recovery journey. So now, what are some positive coping strategies that anybody trying to quit addiction must incorporate into their lifestyle? Some grounding activities would include deep breathing. If you followed for a while, you would understand what I'm saying. Even the meditation exercises are also some form of grounding activities. So deep breathing, relaxation techniques, journaling, instead of sitting and allowing your mind to go 1,000 places or over ruminating on what was done, what was said, the way it looked at you, the way it acted, or even flashbacks of memories that will still invade upon your mind from childhood. Being intentional about journaling the thoughts, the emotions, and the triggers around the addiction, then being able to talk to a trusted friend instead of isolating. Like I said earlier, life will continue to happen. Having someone as a support system is valuable, is essential on this recovery journey. So having that person you can talk to rather than isolating and bottling the whole thing inside till it explodes in the form of an addiction. Then some other healthy coping mechanism would be art. So if you're somebody who loves to draw, who loves to color, who loves to paint, could be music, could be writing. In this case, no journaling. Could just be fiction or non-fictional writing, just bringing out the creative juices inside of you. Then practicing gratitude and reframing stressful situation. Gratitude is an essential anchor for anybody who is trying to recover from any mental health problem. The truth is, regardless of whatever is going wrong, there are still things to be grateful and thankful for. You know, a very wise person said, when you look at your life and there's nothing positive to be thankful for, then start to thank God for the problems you don't have. I'm also a doctor apart from being a therapist. When you talk about breathing, that your lungs and your airways can exchange oxygen without us needing to give you an additional oxygen. That is a miracle going on there. That you can go to the toilet and sit on the toilet and pee and poo without medical assistance. That's a miracle going on there. There are those who would need to have dialysis twice or thrice a week, and my heart goes out to them. Those people would give everything to be in your situation. And when you keep going on and on, to even have your right mind to be able to listen to this, that it's not a psychotic condition that um, separates you from reality, it's also something to be thankful for. So when you look at it and it seems like it's all overwhelming you, then sit intentionally and ask yourself, what do I have to be thankful for? Look at those five things, write them out, speak them out, and for a couple of minutes, just let your attention dwell on that. Many times it begin to anchor you and will be a form of positive coping mechanism. Then reframing stressful situations. Our perception about everything determines the way our emotion will go. Nothing makes any meaning except the meaning we make of it. So you are a student who now has to struggle with the stress of admission or even the stress of getting your school fees. That's true. But a way of reframing that situation is that you got an admission in the first place, that you're intelligent enough to be admitted into a university of higher learning, or someone who is burdened by the stress and the demands of work, and then begins to tell stories of, oh, I wish I did not have this and that. And you know, all of those negative and sad tales that we will tell sometimes. A way of reframing it is thank God we even have a job in the first place, or even as a parent and you're worried that now the kids have messed up the house or they are making demands on you and you cannot afford to provide such demands. It's something to be grateful for. A way of reframing the situation is thank God there are even kids in the first place. What if there aren't kids in any way? So reframing a stressful situation is a positive boost to our morale, to our mental health, and a very solid anchor when the waves and the storm of addiction is threatening to uproot what it is that you have built. Then healthy distractions like walking, puzzles, solving puzzles, taking a walk, volunteering in causes that are dear to your heart. If you're someone who loves elderly people, and there are elderly people you can volunteer to help watch or take care of or assist. And if you're someone who loves babies, you can volunteer to go to a daycare center just once a week, your free day, just to be able to take care of those kids. One is that it would is a positive boost, release a lot of feel good hormones, and then the more of the positives you can put in your life, the less of the negatives you have room for. And emotional pain, negative mental mindsets and belief systems many times are like the impetus that will slide anybody down that slippery slope of addiction. Then practicing problem solving instead of avoidance. You know, many times there will be a lot of challenges that someone who struggles with addiction will be tilted or tilting towards the direction of let me escape this problem by going to smoke, by going to drink, by going to have sex, and all of the other addiction that the individual may be struggling with. Why not challenge yourself with the intention of let me sit with this problem and ask, what can I do about it? If you don't run away from it, chances that there's something you can do that will shift that problem a little. May not solve it in entirety, but at least we'll shift it a little. So being able to sit with that is something that is vital. The truth is, addiction would only thrive where emotional pain, psychological pain, stressful situations have no outlet. Once you can get an outlet for them, then addiction will not thrive as such. Will there still be craving? Yes, every once in a while there will still be craving, but following through on such a craving will be significantly reduced once you're able to get legitimate outlets for emotional pain, and your recovery will thrive when you have multiple sources of safe outlets for your emotional expression, as I have discussed in those healthy coping strategies. Now, we said we're also open to discuss around emotional intelligence and resilience. Your being emotionally intelligent allows you as an individual to be able to notice, name, and manage your emotions without fear or shame. The number of adults who have come in contact with who cannot name what they are feeling is quite significant. Why is, as Africans, again, we were raised in such a way that negative emotions in many homes are not really accepted. So you have the young boy, 4-year-old, crying, and somebody shouts at him and tell him, "Come on, wipe your face. Why are you crying? A big boy. Don't you know big boys are not supposed to cry?" That's not a big boy. That's a child. That's a toddler there that should be sat with and listened to and be taught how to name his emotions. So what's going on? Why are you crying? What's the problem? What are you feeling? And then he's able to tell you, "I'm sad because I lost my this and that and that." So what can we do about it? Yeah, and then you're teaching that child problem solving skill. You're teaching the child to know that it's safe to feel your emotions. Emotions will come and go. We don't dwell on it. So we really recognize, acknowledge the fact that you're sad. Then we sit with you for a couple of minutes and then ask the next question. So what do you think we can do about it? That's where you're training and grooming that 4-year-old to grow into an adult male who is able to identify his emotions, who is able to sit with it without fear, without shame, and who is able to, after he has felt all his feeling, able to then say, "Okay, how do I proffer solution to this problem?" So resilience will keep you as an individual grounded when life becomes difficult. That's difficult life. Then forget all of the viral sayings about soft life. Even those who have made it will tell you that daily they must overcome tussles, they must overcome challenges to be able to continue building that life that is worthwhile, that people see as emulatable. So challenges will come, difficult moments will come. Resilience is what determines how well anchored you can be in the midst of that storm. You know what the picture I painted of a tree that is so deeply rooted. Let the worst of storms come, it is still there standing. Matter of fact, it will be said that storms make trees grow deeper. So if those difficult times would also make you harness your coping mechanism and be able to utilize them better, fan them out, stretch out possibilities of how much you can amass and accrue from those your coping mechanism, then so be it. So at the end of the day, the difficult situation is serving you. It's not negating your recovery journey. So why does it matter that one is emotionally intelligent as you navigate this journey of recovery? When you can feel your feelings without being overwhelmed by it, you are less likely to escape through substances or compulsions or self-destructive habits. What that means then is I can be angry and you can be scared, and we both sit with it and realize that this is a passing feelings. Feelings don't last forever. Difficult times don't last forever either. It is tough people that do. So we sit with the feeling and try and stretch it. Why do I feel like that? What do I believe about myself when I feel like that? What stories am I telling myself when I feel like that? What are the other possibilities for this situation aside from the narrative I've painted of it? Okay, so because if there's a possibility of somebody was struggling to get school fees or to meet deadlines, and then there's the feeling of fear. Okay, so I may end up losing this admission, or okay, and good things never happens. When it happens, I always lose them, or then continues down the trail of being unfortunate, and all of the negative beliefs that would accrue from such a situation. And then sit with it. What are the other possibilities? Is it really true that you always lose out on opportunities when you've got them? And then seeing the other possibility through a vantage point. So you're having a 360 analysis of the challenging situation, and then you ask the final question. So what can I do about it? There's no school fees. Who can you reach out to? Can you reach out to mentors? Can you reach out to parent to guardians? Can you reach out to uncles? Can you reach out to relations? Can you reach out to um, pastorates? Can you reach out to clergies? Can you reach out to the church? Can you reach out to the school to give you some more time? You see, on and on like that. Yeah, there's always something we can do. It's just that the negative emotion many times will put a cap, will put a ceiling on the possibilities that can arise from inside of us. But once you learn how to sit with the feeling and you don't allow it swallow you up, you don't allow it to overwhelm you and put a cap on the giftings within you, the possibilities that can come out from within your spirit, you're on your way to recovery. And even to be able to now integrate your faith into the recovery, to know that being still and knowing that is God, it is in your stillness, in your coming to that place where you are settled. Okay, we're scared, but we're still. We're angry, but we're still. And we give room to the magnificence of God, that then your knowing of your God then begins to expand. So even beyond what can you do about it, then you begin to ask questions like, so what can God help me do about it? What can God do about it? So we started from a challenging situation. Now we're even fanning it out where we're gaining strength, we're gaining possibilities, we're gaining horizon, we're gaining vantage point and beginning to view things from the lens of God. But it will arise from that emotional awareness, emotional intelligence, and the place of resilience. Once you lose that, you can't touch some deeper depth psychologically and spiritually. Then the third thing is having supportive family and community networks. Healing never happens in isolation. Not physical healing, not psychological healing, not emotional healing. God has made us as interdependent beings. We are supposed to need one another. So for somebody who is trying to recover from addiction, your healing would happen in the context of healthy connections. Addiction risk and relapse risk would increase once there is chronic isolation, because life will then happen and there's nobody to pick you up, and then you don't have any healthy way of coping. Without any option, you relapse back to what felt familiar and what you've always known as safe, even though what felt safe now is beginning to hurt. So protective supportive systems would then include what? Would include trustworthy family relationships. It can be so bad that there isn't a family member that can be trusted. If it's not a parent, could it be a sibling? If it's not a sibling, could it be a cousin? If it's not a cousin, could it be an aunt or uncle? But I tell you, if you're intentional to really seek out, there's still good people out there. You'll be able to find a trusted family relationship that you'll be able to um, um, connect with as a protective, supportive system. Then accountability partner, someone that knows you are on this recovery journey of trying to quit addiction. You may not necessarily tell them, oh, I'm struggling with pornography addiction, and if you can't, the better, because so why is the person your accountability partner? But being able to tell them, I'm struggling with this, could you check in on me? Could you hold me accountable? Could you see to it that I continue on this recovery journey? That would then mean the person knows what your therapy days are and he is able to call you up and ask you, have you gone? That would then mean when you have cravings or you have those negative thoughts, you can call the person up and say, I'm really struggling and be beginning to have cravings again. There should be at least one of such person in your life. It cannot be your therapist. Reason it not be your therapist is your therapist would also be taking care of other clients that with the best of intention, such a therapist may not be able to offer the kind of support you need in this situation. Your therapist has another support that he offers to be able to help you holistically and objectively process whatever it is within your psyche that you need to process, to be able to give you psychoeducation and understanding around what your recovery journey looks like, to be able to give you therapeutic assignments that would further your recovery journey, make you really sit with yourself and do self exploration. Those are the support that your therapist will offer to you. May not be the best person to select for an accountability partner. Your accountability partner could also be your clergy, could be your pastor, could be your imam, could be someone that you know you look up to and can really hold you responsible to staying sober. Then you could also have support groups and recovery circles if such are available where you stay. Then could be mentors, could be pastors, could be coaches, and could even be a community group that you are involved in if you, and you should, not if you, because a recovery journey will demand that you're also imputing positives while you're trying to take out the negatives. So what you should then do, which is what I was talking about, is have a department that you actively work in church, because there would also be some form of accountability partner for you, such that when they don't see you in church on Sunday because your mind has taken you places and you become overwhelmed with dealing with life and you're tilting towards isolation, they will be able to call you up and ask you, sister so 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 so, brother so 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 so, we didn't see you in church today. So that will mean you're going to church, introducing yourself to the clergy and the pastorate, and asking to be included in a department that meets your fancy, and introducing yourself to the HOD and asking the HOD to hold you accountable. So that way, it's like you're building a positive relationship that will foster your recovery, and giving less attention to the negative relationship of hanging out with fellow persons who drink, who smoke, who go clubbing, who go partying, which will rather even tilt you more towards the addiction. The truth is, please remember this: recovery is not an individual journey. And you would only be able to stay strong to the extent you regularly connect with people that will uplift you, positively challenge you, and support you. If you're not doing any of this, the recovery journey will be a long one. And it doesn't have to be a long one with all of these resources that we are sharing here. So the fourth point is education and spiritual grounding. This that we're having is some form of psychoeducation. If you've watched up to this point, I know by now your eyes are beginning to open to what it takes and what recovery demands of you. So understanding addiction, how did they arise, how did I get here, what happened, and so on and so forth. And then the relapse cycle. So I will mention a bit on relapse cycle because this is a very essential for somebody who is trying to recover. There are three phases of relapse. So if somebody says, today I quit, if the individual relapses in a month, it wasn't sudden. It is a gradual, like a slippery slope. It's a gradual slope downhill. So the first phase is the emotional relapse, then there's a mental relapse, there's a physical relapse. Emotional relapse, in this phase, the individual is experiencing negative emotions and beginning to isolate, which is what takes us back again to that support system, such that when your emotions are really preying down on you negatively, there's an outlet. Once there's no outlet for that emotional turmoil and tension that the individual is experiencing, we will say emotional relapse has occurred, even though the individual has not used this behavior or the substance. Because just keep it up for a couple of days. If the relief that the individual should experience by having healthy outlets for their emotional turmoil does not come, they get into a state of mental relapse where they begin to now visualize and envision and dream and think about how the substance or the behavior made them feel better. Because again, pathway has been built in the brain that tells them by reason of use that when we feel this way, we do this and we feel better. And this person's emotional state has been the negative for a number of days without resolution, without a means of outlets. Naturally, they begin to start thinking, perhaps if I do this now, maybe I'll feel better. And the brain begins to rationalize. And the last time you did it, you felt better. I think you've been sober for a month now. You should be wiser and know how to play around it now. It won't be so bad. Just give it one go. And then the rationalization continues. At that point, we say this individual is having a mental relapse. Now, keep mental relapse up without the individual reaching out to an accountability partner that, hey, I'm struggling, oh, I'm really beginning to have a lot of cravings, a lot of thoughts around using again. Before you know it, it's a slippery slope. The the resistance, the will will eventually get broken, and then they have a physical relapse, which is when they really do use the substance or behavior. So they've returned to the behavior. Now, it's a relapse, but again, if it does happen, the person can pick themselves up and then begin the journey again. So if it happens to you, don't see it as the end of the road. The relapse is not the end of it. You would only say that you failed when you don't pick yourself up. So for every relapse, pick yourself back up. But more than even getting to the phase of the physical and the final phase of the relapse is to begin to identify emotionally. Once you're off in emotionally, know that this is an emotional phase of relapse. I need to really find a way of outlet to pick myself up and get better before I slip down that slope. Then still under education will then be that mean that the individual is also learning personal triggers. What are the things that will trigger you and like warning signs that let you know I'm playing with fire, I'm going near the well, and I may slip, I may fall. Some common relapse and warning signs for many people is when there's an internal change. Again, still is very closely related to the phases of relapse. So you're beginning to feel sad. In fact, a negative emotion already is a warning sign that you want to really be on your toes about, or when you begin to avoid relationships, positive relationships that anchor your recovery, when you begin to avoid church, when you start to skip meetings or you start to give excuses for not being at your therapy session, when you start to postpone your therapy session, when the meditation that you do daily, that you committed to daily, you're becoming inconsistent. When you're becoming inconsistent with journaling, when you're becoming inconsistent with calling up your support system or your accountability partner, or they even call you and you don't pick their calls now. Those are warning signs. When you're now picking calls of your former dealer or the persons you used with before, could be a behavior or an action. When you're beginning to go back online to those sites or those videos, or going back to look at the person's DP. You've not made a call, you've not contacted, your heart is just longing for such an individual. Those are warning signs that such an individual should be able to discern and decipher that, okay, I'm beginning to sleep. So those are, but again, for recovery, it's essential to be able to really understand some of these nuances personally, because your warning signs will be very different from another person. Someone who struggles with sex-related addiction would have very different warning signs from someone who struggles with substance or alcohol addiction. Then, of course, also being able to identify your triggers. What are some things that will trigger a negative emotion or trigger a relapse? So, stressful situation is one of such for virtually everybody who is trying to recover. Negative emotion already said that. Social pressures, if you hang out in places where they then put a lot of pressure on you to use, or even to have some conversations that you know would gradually thrill you towards that. Then environmental factors and a number of things. For some people, it's even celebration. So there's a family party, you're trying to quit from alcohol, but alcohol is available abundantly at such a family party. It's not a negative situation, but that would be considered an addiction trigger for somebody who is struggling or trying to recover. Relationship issues, you've been very good with your wife, you're trying to quit alcohol, but now you are having some bit of tension and it seems like you cannot resolve it. That alone is a potential trigger for such an individual to have a relapse. Financial strain is also a potential trigger. The mere fact that that leads you down the road of some negative emotional states, then some thought patterns, some perceptions, some belief system, and then slowly downhill till the individual gets to the mental phase of relapse, where they begin to now rationalize. Maybe if they use, they'll feel better before the physical act of relapse finally. So now, spiritual grounding practices. Addiction is both a biological, a psychological, a sociological, and a spiritual construct. It's not just a psychological issue. It affects and cuts across the four the four components of human existence. So spiritual grounding is essential for anybody who will be able to sustain their recovery on a long term, because you will get to some level of life challenges and struggles where you just need to be anchored spiritually to be able to weather such storms. So the act of having consistent prayer life, consistent meditation on the word of God is essential. You literally would calendarize and automate your recovery journey. Have an alarm, have a timetable around such. Have again an accountability partner, somebody who can even call you up while you're still in that early phase of recovery journey, or you're even still in the early phase of your conversion, still trying to figure out and navigate your way around what prayer looks like. Then scriptures, studying the word of God around identity, around your worth, around your hope of being able to come out of these struggles of addiction. You know, one thing that trauma does is that it implants negative core beliefs in a lot of people. So they have core beliefs. The common ones is not being good enough, not being worthy, not being loved, not being safe. They're always those four. But by the time you've sat with scriptures for a while, it begins to um, you begin to implant superior belief systems, mental models, and mental constructs that says you're fearfully and wonderfully made, that says heaven and earth will pass away, but his love and his loving kindness will not depart from you, that says he's made you the head and not the tail, and so many other wonderful ones. That when the belief of not being good enough comes in, your the scriptures you have implanted in your souls come out as arrow and counter those ones. So it's important. You just have to be consistent with it. I can't sugarcoat that. It's just what it is. Then the place of, again, still part of spiritual grounding, fellowship and accountability with faith communities, that is your church, your department where you work, and things like that. Then practicing speaking out your confessions, affirmations, finding affirmations that supports your recovery, that supports the kind of individual you are trying to become, and speaking them till they become your reality. The truth is, words are seeds. Words don't words don't exist just like that without impact. In fact, there was an interesting research. If you still go online, you'll find them, where some students had two potted plants, but one potted plant was repeatedly abused. They spoke a lot of negative things to the plant. You are ugly, you are fat, you know the way students and teenagers will bully themselves. So this plant was literally bullied. And there's another one that had a lot of positive affirmations. You're beautiful, you're good, you are this and that. Who would expect that words can impact the growth of plants? Over time, it was found, I think within a space of 14 days, that the plant who had positives spoken to it grew and blossomed. The plant who was verbally bullied wilted and died. So if that happens with plants, how much more the human being that you are? So finding affirmations that will support your recovery journey, and affirmations that will be like seeds into the individual you're growing up to become, and committing to speaking them out aloud to your hearing daily is also another spiritual grounding activity. Then developing a sense of purpose and calling. If by virtue of the addiction it had narrowed your life so much that you don't have any other life outside the addiction, you don't have friends, you don't have a job, you don't have an academics, there's nothing you're doing, you just wake up, you eat and sleep. No, 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 no. You can't adopt that method. You must find a sense of purpose and calling, something that is a reason for you to wake up every day. Until you find a job or until you get an admission, I would always recommend to my clients, find a means of volunteering. Find a means of volunteering. Find what it is you like to do that you can begin to do free until the job comes, until the admission comes. So if you're someone who has decent level of education and can teach, even if it means you're going to volunteer to teach kindergarten class or teach a primary school class, such that we know we are getting up every day, we're going to do something positive. And then it takes away all of the leisure time, the idle time. You know, it's our saying again as African that the idle hand is the devil's workshop. You don't want to be idle. So you want to find a sense of purpose and calling. If it is to take care of babies, find a crutch. that you can volunteer. If it's to take care of the elderly people, find an elderly home that you can volunteer, or even an elderly person could be your aunt, your grandmom, your grandpa, that you're then committing to, okay, I will take care of grandpa and I will commit to that faithfully. The truth is, people who know why they must stay sober and those who sustain them, I mean, the people who would sustain and the actions that will sustain you are usually those who will be stronger in the face of temptation and stress. Till tomorrow, I can't sound it too much that temptation and stress will come, but your ability to stay sober and be able to get resources to keep you stronger is what will determine if you'll be able to weather those storms when they come. So the fifth and the final one is developing healthy lifestyle as a means of protection. Addiction impacts both the brain and the body, and both your brain and your body needs stability, needs nourishment to be able to manage cravings and impulsive behavior. So some lifestyle protective mechanisms that you want to then incorporate in addition to everything I've said is regular exercise. Exercise will release a wonderful neurotransmitter called serotonin. Serotonin is a positive mood booster, it's a natural mood booster. So you want to commit to that. So that that's 30 minutes daily of brisk walking, or 30 minutes daily of climbing flights of stairs, or 30 minutes daily of jogging. You want to commit to that. The clause I would say is if you do decide to enroll in a gym, also be intentional about selecting gyms, not gyms where you also have users. That would be temptation for you. Then nutritious foods would help to balance your hormones and your brain chemistry. So you want to have a healthy balance of carbohydrates, of proteins, of fibers, of fats and oil. That means preferably you are eating cooked meals. And if you can even make them yourself, it puts in a bit more intentionality. All well and good. So if you say, while I'm on this 3 months 12 weeks recovery journey, I'm going to commit to making my meals daily, at least one meal daily, and I would make it as healthy as can be. Wonderful for you. Then good sleep hygiene. If you're a Gen Z and you're watching this, I want to hope that you're not a Gen Z who sleeps by 2 a.m. and wakes up by 10 a.m. You cannot do that if you're on this recovery journey. This is why sleep is essential for you to not feel fatigued and irritable. Once you're fatigued and irritable, your nerves are raw, tensions are high. Likely you will do something that will incite a negative emotion, or somebody will do something that will agitate you negatively. Remember, the emotional negative emotion is the first state of emotional relapse. That's one. Two is that melatonin is also one of those neurotransmitters that are being released that helps with memory, that helps with alertness, that helps with being calm, being at ease. Melatonin is released according to our circadian rhythm. So we have the night and day rhythm. The night rhythm, if you are um, in Africa, for instance, is in the middle of the night from 12 to 6 a.m. If you're sleeping by 2, you've missed out a large section, a large portion of the hours that melatonin will be released. So at the end of the day, if you keep that up for a while, your body is naturally depleted of melatonin and all the other wonderful things that should come from it that would sustain your recovery journey. So you want to see to it that you're sleeping. Regardless of what you do, commit to hitting the bed latest by 11, such that by 5 you are up, and then you begin to put in activities towards your recovery journey. Not that you sleep the whole afternoon and midnight you are up surfing sites that you know you shouldn't be, and then before you know you're on that slippery slope again. Or even binge watching media, and then you compare somebody's highlights with your own behind the scene, and you begin to conclude that you're falling short, and then those negative emotions begin to flood your system. So you want to be intentional about sleeping when we should sleep. Sleep should happen in the night. That is even pushing it, that's between the hours of 11 and 5 a.m. Then of course drinking enough water would help to also reduce fatigue and irritability. Then you want to have hobbies, positive hobbies. Regardless of how busy you are, there should still be some things you do that you enjoy and gives you pleasure, gives you a sense of identity, and gives your life meaning outside the addiction. So if that is a game, if that is sewing, if that is knitting, if that is crocheting, if that is cooking, if that is just whatever it is, making hair for people, sewing clothes, find an hobby and see to it that at least once a week you engage in an activity you consider a hobby and really have a fun time, just enjoying life without any demands or any expectation being placed on you. Then you want to also reduce your access to high risk environment or triggers. So practical things will be that you're blocking the number of your dealer, or your dealer in this case may be somebody who sells you drugs, or somebody who sells you sex, or somebody who sells you loot, as the case may be. So blocking and deleting such numbers. If it means that you would even need to change location, desperate times will sometimes call for desperate measures. If you are in an environment where all you do there is alcohol, you don't have a means of livelihood there, you don't have a job, you're not schooling there. So what are you doing there? You may as well just check out and go to another place where you can plant new roots. If it means that you're going to change the locks on your door, maybe you have your sex consorts, they have access to your house key and they can just be there impromptu. By all means, if you even have to go as far as changing your numbers, because those who have your numbers are more than those whose number you have, such that even when you delete their numbers, they can still call you with other numbers. By all means, it's like you're trying to build a new life that is founded solidly on recovery, sobriety, wholeness, and purpose. So now the assignment you would have, please at this point, I would suggest that you would pause this video, get a piece of paper and a pen so that you can make some jottings. I am hoping that, no, I would want you to develop a personal prevention plan. You said that's one of the things we're hoping to be able to do at the end of this course. This personal prevention plan would be tools, people, habits, practices that will keep you steady and help you reduce relapse or the risk of relapse. So the things you want to itemize then would then be your personal triggers. What are the personal triggers? What are the things that trigger you to that state of wanting to use or do a substance or a behavior? Stress, not sleeping, anger, hunger, financial strain. What are they? Itemize them. And what are the early warning signs of relapse for you? At what point do you begin to sense that relapse is coming, or based on how it has happened before? See, when you start to isolate, when you stop picking calls, when you start crying yourself to sleep, or what is it? Or when you hang out with some of your buddies who use. Itemize what are your early warning signs. Then by the third one, itemize what are your early coping tools. By all means, please see to it that you have at least 3. So that could be persons you can reach out to, that could be family, that could be accountability partner, that could be activities in the house of God that just gives you a sense of positive responsibility, that could be places where you volunteer, and a number of things. That could be meditation, journaling, that could be affirmations, prayer, scripture study. I mean, coping tools are a lot, but have as many as possible. They are like outlets for when life really begins to cave in on you. Then what are the people who are the people you can reach out to when you are struggling? Please have at least one person. Please have at least one person. Remember what we said earlier. Addiction thrives in isolation and secrecy. Recovery thrives in connection. Have at least a person. A parent, a spouse, a brother, sister, uncle, aunt, nephew, niece, as the case may be. Just write the name of one person and commit to it. And if it means you will also call them up that, okay, if I do struggle, please, can I call you? Can you talk me out of it? Or can I come over to your house if it's possible and the person stays within your area of residence? Then what are your spiritual anchors? Prayers, Bible studies, affirmations. What are your spiritual anchors? Then what's your lifestyle commitment? What are the things that without a shadow of doubt you are committing to doing them every blessed day, because you know they are fostering your recovery and they are pushing you day by day to that individual you want to become? Then what are boundaries you must set with high risk people and places. So, what are the places you would not, under any circumstances, visit? If you struggle with alcohol and smoking, addiction, marijuana, and the likes, a possible high risk place then will be clubs, will be party areas that really, what are you doing there if you're struggling to come out of addiction? So you want to really earmark such places and such people, and know that if you have to write such places and persons in red, you know red means danger. By all means, do that. Then also have an emergency plan such that if you begin to have cravings or you have emotional overwhelm, what would you do? Who would you reach out to? So now, I think with what we've discussed, I'm hoping that you would have been able to at least know what put you at risk personally, know what protects you, be able to understand the skills that you need to continue to build this your recovery journey, be able to identify your support system, be able to get anchored spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. And I hope you've also developed your personalized prevention plan. So thank you for staying with me. I hope this was really helpful for you. If it was, kindly drop a comment so that some more people who would benefit from this will be able to access it. And then please do well to also share it for those who would be blessed by this. Thank you very much. Wishing you love and light. Bye.